Mr. Westerson, we're going to call us to order. And if you can start with a roll call, please.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Councillor Carlson.
Present.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Present.
I do see Councillor Parker has joined us online, and of course there's several members of administration here for you.
And we have quorum, so we can continue on. The acknowledgement statement, the City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge offers respect to the Métis and all who have lived on this land and made Lethbridge their home. Moving on now to the adoption of the agenda. The agenda, of course, was circulated last week, and I have a motion here from Acting Mayor Carlson. Be it resolved that the February 27, 2025 agenda of the Governance Standing Policy Committee meeting be adopted as presented. Acting Mayor Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had one question before I ask if my colleagues had any. Item 7.1. I believe this has been added as a standing item. Is that correct?
7.1, Mr. Gauthier is here. I believe we do have something on that, so it is actually an agenda item, not just a standing item.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Any additions to the agenda? Changes?
I see none.
Excellent. Then I will call for the vote. Thank you.
Question's been called. All in favor? And the agenda is adopted. Moving on to the consent agenda, I have a motion from Vice Chair Middleton Hope. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee, 1, approve the minutes of the Governance Standing Policy Committee meeting held on December 17, 2024, and authorize the Chair and the City Clerk Designate to sign the same. And 2, receive for information the status of initiatives for February 27, 2025. All right, I don't see anyone jumping in for questions, etc. Through Vice Chair Middleton Hope.
Nope. Mr. City Clerk, any additions, deletions?
None.
Okay, let's call the question then.
Question's been called. All in favor? Excellent. That also passes by unanimity, which is a fun word. Moving on to the agenda, we have presentations. We have first the Parks Master Plan. Mr. Somerville, Parks Planning Manager, and Ms. Barris from Urban Systems. Now, unless my committee colleagues disagree, I have offered them 10 minutes of presentation time instead of the regular 5, unless there is a deep concern. No deep concern. So you guys have 10 minutes. Ms. Kleisinger, are you introducing or jumping right to staff? All right. Then the floor is yours.
I am the Parks Planning Manager for the City of Lethbridge Parks and Cemeteries Department. We're excited to be here today to present to Governance Standing Policy Committee the 2024 Parks Master Plan document. The Parks Department has been working to develop this document to help guide the management of the Lethbridge Park system for the next 15 to 20 years. This plan was professionally compiled by Urban Systems, a community-forward consulting firm successfully selected through an open competitive process. The team from Urban Systems are experts in community engagement, and we were so fortunate to be guided through an extensive engagement process to integrate vital community feedback directly into this document. The new Parks Master Plan was crafted to align with our other city plans and strategic documents, and includes recommendations for park naturalization, improving community connections and trails through accessibility, as well as addressing park design amenities, elements, and considering service delivery. The new Parks Master Plan will replace the previous plan from 2007. In 2021, Council approved the current CIP, which included funding approval for an updated Parks Master Plan project. In June 2023, City Council was engaged directly on this project during Civic Works Standing Policy Committee. It was noted by our consultants how impressed they were to find council members so keenly engaged with our community. So today, the 2024 Parks Master Plan is presented to this committee with options to either approve or not approve a recommendation for adoption by City Council. It is the recommendation of City Administration that the 2024 Parks Master Plan be approved in principle as a guiding document with direction for Parks Administration for the continued planning, development, and operation of the city's park system. Urban parks are essential to community well-being. As our city continues to grow, it is our parks that are best suited to support a healthy quality of life. Spaces for quiet respite and relaxation, active sport and fun, culture, connection, and celebration. Public urban parks balance recreational needs with support and protection of our beloved green spaces, natural areas, and ecosystems. The new Parks Master Plan will ensure that our green spaces are well-developed, sustainable, and efficiently maintained for all citizens of Lethbridge well into the future. Thank you. And at this time, before we ask for your questions, I would also like to introduce the project lead from Urban Systems, who's joining us online, the brilliant Catherine Barris, who I've enjoyed working with so much. She's a landscape architect and community planner. And with that, Catherine, I'll just turn it over to you if you have any words.
Okay, thank you, brilliant Andrew. So I just wanted to say a few words about this process. First of all, I was really impressed with the passion of your community and their willingness to provide input to this project. It was just really great to see the level of interest all the way through. I was also really impressed with the extensive park system you have, and particularly the beauty of the River Valley. I mean, you have just so much to offer to your residents. The plan was a great opportunity to synthesize and interconnect with many of your other city plans, especially related to active transportation, culture, and natural areas planning. And then finally, it was just really a great process to be able to look ahead into the future and identify the ways that we could help to make your parks more environmentally friendly, more inclusive, more efficient to operate, and also just plain more fun year round. So yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. It was also a wonderful staff working team who worked with us all the way through, and we had some fantastic workshops intergovernmentally with all your different departments. So yeah, very much appreciated the process, and happy to answer any questions. And I just got noisy behind me, so I'm going to mute when I'm not talking.
Well, thank you. So we gave you 10 minutes, and I think you used like 5. So, maybe we should always offer everybody 10 minutes so that they'll be shorter. All right. We'll first go to the public and see if there's any members of the public who wish to speak on this before we go to questions from committee. Knowing most of the people in the audience, I don't think this is the topic they're here to discuss, but okay. We will now move then to questions from committee. If any of committee members have questions, this is your opportunity. All right, first in queue is Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this would be to Ms. Kleisinger and et cetera. Are we planning on, it's a good strategy, actually. It was well written, and I think it provides us with some pretty good insights into where we want to go over the next number of years. So thank you to those who were directly involved in it. Are we going to be continuing to provide incentives for exerscaping over the course of time? So not only as a part of the additional park systems that we have, but for others in the community.
In terms of the community, we definitely have always had programming and educational supports to help encourage those sort of developments, like xeriscaping and low water required landscapes using native plant materials and things that are a little bit more suited to our environment. There's nothing specific in this plan to that other than supporting those general programs.
Okay.
But
and what about our parks? Are we continuing that program as well?
Yes. So yeah, the plan reiterates and supports existing sort of efforts that we've been starting and initiating. And what we hope to do is actually improve and roll that out a little bit more thoroughly. So we have some trial areas that we had done previously. We are looking to partner with developers and other community projects, whether it's with community groups or otherwise, where there's interested people to come forward and present an option for naturalized treatment to a park space. So there is lots of opportunities in existing parks that we are exploring, and we're going to begin that later in the year, where we start putting some of those options into the public and see how they respond to it. But yeah, it's something we continue to do.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any of the new development, and I don't know who this would go to, Ms. Kleisinger, but in any event, we're continuing to develop park space. We're continuing to utilize the river valley. Are we in any of our development and or planning, are we considering access and egress points for LFES and police for emergency access and or accessing encampments?
So again, I can answer that. The answer is yes. We've been working with Lethbridge Emergency Services. We've, with our current River Valley Trail Network that we are in the process of promoting and continuing the expansion of sanctioned trails throughout the River Valley. A big part of that is going to be signage, and part of the signage includes emergency indicator markers on each signpost, so that the public, if they run into a problem, they can find their nearest marker, and then when they call 311, they can reference that point, and then the call takers will be able to direct the responders directly to that location. And part of that is going to include routing. So
It's going to include what?
Routes for
emergency
services to attend to that location specifically. So if we get a call come in indicating that they're in a certain park at a certain post, then the route options will display to those emergency service responders, and they should be able to find them a lot more effectively. The other thing too is with those routes, anything that needs improvements for access and things like that, we'll be looking at that as well. It's sort of an ongoing partnership we have with them right now.
Okay, good, thank you. I do like the recycling of playgrounds, and both for tots as well as for more senior people. I think it's a great idea to recycle them as the community or the neighborhoods begin to change. They may be utilized for different activities. For example, it may be a tot lot, or it may be a horseshoe throwing pit. And I like the way you've made some decisions here in terms of reclaiming these as the use diminishes and we start moving people into newer areas. I think it's a great idea. Last is in regards to Galt Gardens. Ms. Kleisinger, we're going to continue to do some of the things that we commenced in the fall, which, by the way, have made a significant improvement on Galt Gardens, particularly in the southwest corner of the park. But are we going to continue to do upgrades to the park this year that will enhance the enjoyment for our citizens?
All of the work in Galt Gardens continues, and that's something that we look at and get together as internal departments to reassess where we were at and where we will be going. The sound system will be new for 2025, as well as you'll see some of the upgrades that were completed in late fall will now be able to be completed for the spring. So you'll see probably some new signage, entrance signage, new landscaping, new sound equipment, and then anything else that we come up with. And as we look at what was completed for last year and what we're planning on doing for 2025.
Okay. And more activities?
Always.
Good. Thank you. Okay.
Councillor Schmidt, oh my goodness, I need to take a drink. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, yes. Dry mouth.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for the very thorough plan. It's a fantastic read, and it's great to see the foresight that has gone into the development of our parks as we move into the future. Can you talk a little bit about the plan and how it allows for multimodal transportation? How, you know, our parks have changed, and we need to start considering that. How is that being worked into this plan?
Thank you for the question. So a big part of that is by utilizing and integrating the recommendations of other existing city strategic plans, including the the cycling master plan, and other documents. Specific to parks and pathways, one of the items that it sort of will be addressing the pressures and the new incidents of micromobility devices is the recommendations to update our park pathway categorization. And a big part of that is looking to widen some of our pathways, especially the key connections. So key pathway connections in the past, regional pathways, were in the 3-meter realm of width. We potentially anticipate widening that, and I believe the recommendation within the master plan now is to go to like a 4-meter wider recommendation width for some of those as we develop and redevelop. The reason being it increases the space for safety as those micromobility devices are maybe being used in higher prevalence, as well as accessibility devices and things, and just the higher use. Like we're seeing always a continued growth and increased pressure of usage on our pathways. So by relooking at our pathway categories and how they're built and classified as recommended within the Parks Master Plan, that should help address that to a point. But there's probably a lot of other work that we'll be continuing to do and working with other departments to address.
Okay, so it'll be work that's done across departments, and just as you speak to widening those pathways, making sure that that safety is maintained, how else will we be addressing safety on those pathways to make sure that there are as few incidents as possible between somebody who might be biking, walking, using a scooter, something like that? How are we going to make sure that that safety is going to be maintained for our residents?
There's multi-levels approaches that we could take, including information and signage regarding regulations and requirements. Some parks we've had success by painting lines on pathways. I don't believe we get into the specifics of that in this plan, but it's something that we can consider and potentially utilize in certain locations where we're having issues. Okay. And then, yeah, a big part of it's going to be education and communication to the public. And then again, the enforcement side of it is something that we'll have to figure out a strategic plan specifically for that element, the enforcement side of things in the future with other partners.
Okay. One more question, and then I'll jump out of the queue. Tell me a little bit about the universal design standards for newer redeveloped infrastructure as you're outlining it in this plan. What does that look like, and what kind of changes or new infrastructure can our residents expect to see?
A big part of it is just evaluating what we have currently and what needs to be replaced in priority. So certain things, making sure accessibility and opportunities exist for all citizens in different locations, so that one park might have more accessible elements than others, and just trying to find that balance. So we look at the recommendation is to do a more thorough analysis of our current inventory of amenities and assets, and look to see where we could potentially replace, enhance, improve to make it more equitable across the community.
I'll step out for now. Thank you.
Councillor Carlson, you're next in queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the presenters. I'm not sure who wants to take this one. First, a bit of a statement. I appreciate the update and the forward-looking vision of the plan. I really appreciate the diversity and variety that is discussed. As someone with very young grandnephews, they've been exploring all of our different parks over the last couple of years and have encouraged me to say, keep going. All the different types and styles of parks they love. And so it's awesome. I appreciate that. If I can, a question, not sure who wants to take this, around the naturalization of parks. We've had a couple pilot projects that are talked briefly about in the plan. They were sort of stranded little areas, very odd and not connected. So I'm not sure how those went. If any sort of updates on those would be appreciated. But the real thrust of my question is many of the sections of this plan talk about next steps, recommendations. The naturalization, it looks like it's all planning and thinking. I didn't see any actions, especially capital. And maybe that's because it's cheap. I don't know. But I didn't see any capital plans around naturalization. And my main interest in that, not just because I appreciate them, I love them, but we maintain a lot of manicured park space. And in my mind, every square meter that we could change to naturalization should save us money. So I'm just wondering if there's anything concrete I can take away that yes, we are going to try and naturalize more areas. I just didn't see any thoughts to a capital investment or any investment in that. That was a very long-winded question. Sorry, Blair, or Mr. Director.
No problem. Thank you for the question. So just a quick recap on the naturalization test plots we did. That was in response to the KPMG recommendations. And so we had 3 test plots in different locations of the city. And essentially what we did was we tried to plant 2 different types of dry land mixes. And then we had each plot configured differently. So we had spraying with herbicide, without herbicide, and actually with irrigation and non-irrigation. And we studied those plots for 3 years. And the key takeaways were irrigation significantly increased the native grass establishment. So even though it is dry land grass, that irrigation is useful in those first few years. Herbicide-treated plots are also better at establishing the grass. And then so really at the end of the day, the combination of herbicide and irrigation really does contribute to that success of that establishment of that native grass. So we have those plots, we've learned from those. We've also started development in different areas of the city. So Discovery Park in Southbrook is actually considered a naturalized park. So that park became under our ownership, I believe, last year after the developer maintained it for the first couple of years. Essentially, it has all dry land grass, so less mowing, reduced irrigation. The only irrigation is actually for the plants that have been planted there, which is minimal. Lots of rocks and limestone pathways, so no snow clearing. So that's been a pretty successful project. That's really sort of that full naturalized approach, and we are continuing to explore those opportunities moving forward as well with the developers.
Thank you. And anything planned over the next few years to expand on the naturalized areas? They are stranded. I've been to all of them, and like some of them are just a square in the middle of a field, which in my mind makes it harder to mow and maintain. And so I'm just wondering if there's any plans to increase those or connect them.
Yes, so plans are happening. The most recent one is actually at Fairmont Lake, and we're doing some erosion control around that lake. And part of that project is to, fix the riprap and then also install some natural grasses, and that will actually require less mowing and maintenance. So just like I said, we're trying to do these in little bits in different parks. And the big part of it is actually educating the public on these different approaches so we can kind of gain their buy-in for future developments.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question I had, and I couldn't find it, but I will admit that I didn't get down to the last section on maintenance, and so perhaps it's in there. There wasn't really a bullet heading about environmentalism in the plan, and I'm just wondering if that's throughout the plan or if it needs to be its own focus. And I'm talking about things like best practices regarding herbicides, insecticides, etc. I'm trying desperately to encourage folks not to use those types of practices because we need the bees. And so I'm just curious if that's sort of embedded in or if that should be a standalone.
So, yes, within the Parks Master Plan, we do have environmental considerations listed throughout as parts of all the recommendations in a way. Specific to herbicide use and what we endorse or what we propose that the public utilizes on their land, as well as what we integrate into the parks maintenance programs. We are looking at updating our integrated pest management plan, which is a big part of our operational programming. So that'll be looking for opportunities and best practice, and there's a lot of research from other municipalities in terms of what we have available to us to cut down on the total amount, which has always been our goal, is just to reduce the overall amount of chemical that we're using. But knowing we can't eliminate it completely at this stage. So with the naturalization at the forefront of much of the recommendations, naturalization, although it still has some traditional maintenance requirements up front, in the long run, we're hoping that it will show we don't need to do as much of that traditional application of chemical and things like that. So that's essentially how we're looking to reduce the amount overall, is just by revisiting what we do currently and how we can cut back little by little.
I appreciate that. It's always nice to look for ways to reduce. Do we use, this is a very technical question, and not really my wheelhouse, but do we use any neonicotinoids in our parks?
I don't think we can answer that specifically here right now. We can look into that, and we'll have to get that technical question back to you. I don't know offhand.
I'd appreciate it. I know some communities have banned them, and they really affect the bees' nervous systems. And we're seeing many hives collapsing here in southern Alberta right now. So just curious if we're contributing to the problem. So I'd appreciate that follow-up.
Yes, and actually just to kind of follow up on another kind of question you asked earlier regarding connectivity between the naturalized treatments, that's a big recommendation within the master plan now, is to expand those areas and really to find those connections and opportunities where we can establish a corridor or a larger network of naturalized areas, because that's where the most value comes from in terms of the health of that plant community, as well as the health of the invertebrates and pollinators that utilize it and live there. So yes, that will be one of our focuses in the planning exercise going forward, is how can we expand the connections.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Both in Ms. Barris's introduction and in the plan, there is talk of more efficient to operate, increasing efficiency of service delivery. Just give me a highlight. How is this going to be a more efficient plan than the one we currently operate under?
Thanks for the question. So the main recommendations within the plan for operation is just to revisit priorities. Basically, by revisiting what we're doing on a regular basis, then we have an opportunity to potentially save costs and improve efficiencies. So naturalization is a big part of it, just looking to reduce the amount of mowing, chemical application and irrigation, and therefore reducing costs. Another big part of it is just to make sure that our parks are designed well, and those connection elements throughout the neighborhoods, whether it's a regional pathway or some other way to kind of connect them all together. It is evaluated for its operational efficiency, so that the equipment, as it transfers from one park to another, it's done in an effective way going forward. We kind of have a higher level view of a neighborhood as we potentially get new green space and effectively see how they kind of link together, and how equipment can move and all that as well. So
it sounds like, and Mr. Richter might be answering more of this, it sounds like this is becoming more of a priority in your department and more awareness and more being, marking that it's happening. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, so just to add to what Andrew was saying, so one of the sort of the recommendations around operations is actually applying different levels of service for different park categories. So right now, any of our irrigated turf generally receives the same amount of service at a high level. And there's probably opportunities to take a look at some of those linear and open spaces that don't see as much action. They might see a reduced level of service. Now, of course, we would come to council with those ideas and get that approved from council if that's the direction we want to go.
Okay. And in general, again, how prepared are the parks for a dry future? And how does this plan increase our ability to deal with the dryness that's going to be moving ahead, droughts, et cetera? How do we plan for that?
Thank you for the question. So one of the things we did last year was preparing for the drought that we thought we were going to get last year. And so we worked with, Joel's team and worked on that larger water conservation plan. And specifically what we did in parks was actually revisited our irrigation for the year. And we really prioritized which parks were going to receive how much water and put that plan into effect even without the drought. And we still saw it was a pretty effective plan given the situation we were in last year. The other part of it is our urban forestry team has been quite keen on this for quite some time. So we are really looking at identifying, what are the right plantings to plant, where are the right locations to plant those, and how do we help the public understand that as well. So increasing that survivability with our plantings and trees, which ones are best suited to survive in our climate, and thinking about that biodiversity factor as well as we plan our parks in the future.
Okay. Some of the things in here are quite detailed, and they're minor things, or not minor things, but they can have a huge impact. So for example, under P5, adjust the target distance to parks so that they're within a 10-minute walk, so it's decreasing how many meters. Does this mean more parks? Does this increase cost? It seems like a small thing, saying we're going to have parks that are this close to people, but when we do something like that, have we thought through any unintended consequences of something like that? Great to have more parks. Can we afford them?
On a planning level, best practice is to provide space for everyone equally across the city. And so the big part of that recommendation is to make sure that park provision is equitable across all new areas, but also looking at opportunities in older neighborhoods as well. When the redevelopment happens, is there an opportunity to potentially to integrate some new park space or something that would have a recreational aspect to it. So there's, yes, there's definitely sort of a counter element to that. Like it might increase the amount of park space, but it also, depending on the type of park spaces, where the consideration for cost and value really comes.
So they may not be all be playgrounds, they may be pocket parks. So just having that many parks doesn't mean it's all going to be large parks. Okay, thank you. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you to the presenters. Is there an opportunity for residents to become involved in the parks maintenance, specifically as we're looking towards reducing costs, maintaining efficiencies? How can our residents become involved in volunteering to take care of our parks, our green spaces, even contributing to create new green spaces when we're looking at pocket parks, those kinds of things? How can we leverage our residents to be helping with this?
Sure.
Thank you for the question. So one of the things we've done in the last 3 years is actually revamped our Adopt a Park program, and we've tried to recruit more volunteers through different ways. We've actually seen some pretty good uptake in the number of volunteers. So we have a newsletter we send out monthly or quarterly to our subscribers, and we've tried to reach out to people at different engagement events to get their interest on this. And then when it comes to like new development of spaces, we do get requests for things like community gardens and those types of things. And although we haven't been involved in many of those recently, those are always things that we're willing to explore. If things want to give back to the community and have ideas, we're always open to those ideas and like to entertain those as reasonable as we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
And also, just to add, we're also having some community tree planting events coming up soon as well. We're going to be having some additional community tree planting events for people to be involved with as well, specifically.
Okay, next in queue, Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the presenters, and perhaps I may have missed it, or it may be embedded somewhere that I skimmed. Can you direct me to anything that is in the Parks Plan, or maybe it's in another document somewhere, regarding the types of trees we plant. You sort of touched on it a bit in the document regarding, species and cold hardy, et cetera, but I saw nothing, and I may have missed it, regarding edible orchards or those types of things. We plant a lot.
You mean edible fruit trees, you're not eating trees?
Oh, why not? I've been vegan for a long time. So I'm just wondering if those types of things are in this document, or are they somewhere else, or are they just not envisioned?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So in 2021, we did have the Urban Forestry Management Plan developed, which is sort of our procedure document for our urban forest, how to enhance it, and all those kind of things. So there's a lot of information in there, and that document was reviewed as an input into this plan. So we do have that. The second part of it is that the Nature Center has a lot of that information you're asking about. So they do a lot of programming and educational sessions about edible orchards and those kind of things. So they're great resources to look into as well.
Yeah, and thank you. And I'd really love to see us move away from the ornamental trees. I live near the green strip, and it's planted with a bazillion crabapple trees. And my yard has a beautiful, beautiful apple tree. And if those were switched out to edible, those big, beautiful apples, we could feed our community. So I'm just wondering if those kind of things are envisioned. But if it's in another document, I can review that.
Yes, so within the Parks Master Plan and within the Urban Forestry Management Plan, there's reference to enhancing community, and a big part of that is edible fruit and just having the opportunity within the community. So we definitely will be continuing to promote those sort of opportunities where we can on public land in the parks, and then encourage them on private land as well.
And I appreciate that. I'd like it to be a focus going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things I was a little surprised going through this, and maybe I just expected, I didn't see any recommended bylaw changes around parks, because we have some really old and weird rules, like you can't throw snowballs in parks. I mean, right? Or actually snowballs of ice. There's all of those. Was that considered at all in the parks planning? Because a lot of the use of the parks, we have really legalized through some of those old bylaws we've never got rid of.
Thank you for the question. So although it wasn't actually referenced in the document, that is something we are actively working on with the solicitor's team right now, actually, with updating the parks bylaw, updating with new wording and revisiting some of those old rules that probably don't apply anymore. So that is something that's currently in motion.
Okay, so we will look forward to seeing that, because it really will influence how the parks are used. Because some of the ideas you have here, I'm thinking, well, you can't do that, because I know the bylaw under which you can't do that. Like, I mean, we can build it, just people couldn't use it for the purpose you're trying to build it for. Okay, so that was one of the questions that I had. The other question, and it's things like this that sometimes slip into our plans and get us in trouble in the long run. A5, consider decommissioning and repurposing to a more sustainable amenity one outdoor pool that is near the end of its lifespan in partnership with other city departments. How many outdoor pools do we have?
Do we have two? Two, yeah.
So it kind of narrows down which one you're talking about. Was there any conversation with the group that runs the outdoor pools? Because there's both have a different group. Because something like that could raise concerns in one or both of the organizations. This is not something that would happen immediately. This is not something that would happen without talking to with them. It's just, like I said, sometimes things slip in here that cause issues that we're not expecting.
Yeah, that was likely a recommendation from the Recreation Master Plan. I'm assuming that came in. And Catherine, if you could agree or disagree with that statement, that would be appreciated.
I'm pretty sure one of the pools is not in good shape. And basically with looking at best practices, outdoor pools are very high consumers of resources have very high greenhouse gas emissions because, as one architect explained to me, it's like having a refrigerator with the door open. And the other thing is their season of use is so short. And so most municipalities are looking towards replacing outdoor pools with water amenities that are still fun and still cool people off, but they're more sustainable. And so I don't know if that's specific enough for you, but at least that gives you the sort of context for how we're perceiving outdoor pools. They are very social amenities usually, but so that was the suggestion, was to keep the one and make it really good to help support the people who want to engage in outdoor swimming in a pool, but just take care and look for more creative and sustainable water play opportunities going forward.
And Ms. Barris, you have given a beautiful, rational, well thought out answer. Politically, I'm going to tell you I'd like that removed. Because it is an issue that I will play out differently in the public than in a plan like this. So it's just one of those things we have to keep in mind moving forward is that's, and again, you can't do this without council authority, but it's just one of those things that just be aware that when you do read every recommendation, some of them are going to be seen different politically than they are in the way a plan was brought forward. Okay, Mr. Richter, you have something to add to that? Because your mic is on. Okay, all right. Thank you. Do I have any other questions? Okay, I'm going to ask a question though, because I have all the department heads here. So all the master plans come here. And right now we approve, if this moves forward, master plans in principle. We used to accept master plans for information and then nobody knew what that actually meant. Did it mean go ahead and do it or not? Now we're moved to approving in principle. And then if there's any budgetary considerations, they come up through economic SBC at the appropriate time. And I just want to get a sense of what that means, both for this master plan, but in general, because sometimes things get approved in principle and then something happens and council's going, well, we meant everything else in the master plan, but not that. And so I'm just trying to get a sense of what does administration think approve in principle means, and then see if my colleagues have the same concept of that. Oh, I know you weren't expecting that, but at some point, that is the question, because there is the concern that with master plans, we approve something for 15 years, this council might like it, but the next one might think, it's a tail wagging the dog and it's backwards and council's not making the decision. So, Ms. Kleisinger, how does it seem in principle if something like this moves forward?
As part of the recommendation to what we've done with a number of the master plans is anything that would be a capital cost. So to address the outdoor pool, for instance, even shutting down that pool or taking it out would have a capital cost to it. So there would be nothing that would be done without council's permission or approval and some type of engagement. But I see it in three different categories. There's the capital costs that will come back during the capital budget. If there's any changes in operating costs, would come during the operating budget. If there's any service levels that are a change that council's approved, those would come back. And the ones that council wouldn't see are the ones that administration does all the time. So some of Councillor Carlson's questions in regards to pest management, and those, if they're operational in nature and they're not something that council's approved in the first place, you might see those that come and go. Then also knowing, though, that that's where we would ensure that council isn't taken aback and not known about that before it happens, where you would see some type of information update prior.
Right. The reason I ask, of course, the economics are changing and there could be a completely new council come November. This does not put them into only one path for the next 15 years. It gives, in theory, a path, but future councils can make changes. When we say we approve in principle, it means in principle, but there are checks for future councils, et cetera.
Yes, absolutely, which is why we've changed the process in that language specifically, so council can feel comfortable in making that decision, knowing that it doesn't bind someone, but then also that it doesn't bind administration, because things change, finances change, and so we don't want to go on a path where all of them have been recommended and we're not able to deliver to council as well. Well,
and when we used to do for information, that left administration completely stranded, because you're what does that mean? Do you like it or not? And so that's why we moved here. But I just wanted to reconfirm that, not necessarily just for this room, but for the public as well, because they think we've set on a path for the next 15 years. All right. Thank you, Ms. Kleisinger. And I don't see any other questions from committee. Now, we've already asked the public, but Ms. Gong, you came in halfway through. Was this the, not sure if this was the item she came in for. All right, we won't worry there. We'll move on to the motion. Okay, I have a motion from, is this the one you came in to speak on? Of course, yes. As I said, you came in before I opened it to the public, but I assumed this was probably the one you came in. So please come up if you have a question to ask. It's okay. Yeah, come right up to the podium. Yeah, but you have to come to the podium, so or else nobody online can hear you. And I assume you want to talk about the...
I guess you're talking about the park. So the park is just not just the current. You're thinking about the 10 years, 20 years. Do you have an element for the new science, like AI, or attract the young kids, get in to play with it? Or just traditionally, you have a water fountain, mountain, tree, flower, that's normal. Do you have a new thing for the young generation? That's my question. Another question.
Okay, when you're asking questions, you have to address us. We might ask them that question later, but you address us with the question, not staff.
So...
Just talk to us and not to the staff.
Continue?
Yep.
Okay. Now, the city have the lots of different nationalities, came from different background. And then we all have our own culture. We come to this country, we love this country. And then we also love our old background, traditional culture. Can just match milk each other. Just like you have the cowboy thing, and then have a Asian style thing, and then like the Latin American thing, so like a multicultural park, so that the city have a kind of different from or copy other people's, pictures. So then, people coming in, wow, this city is really nice. You have a modern thing, you have a new science thing, you have a multicultural thing, and then attractive the people, and thinking this city is level is higher, not just to follow other people's. That's my question, that's all. It's okay.
And that does actually connect to something that's in the plan. You talk about microgranting for placemaking projects. You talk about budgeting around public arts and monuments, which I'm assuming you have to work with other departments. But within that, is that something that has been considered, is how to have parks that reflect Lethbridge, not just any community, and reflects the culture and the background of Lethbridge?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And that's working with Ms. Bracken and her role in community culture and those kind of things. So that was definitely an input into this plan as well. And we always look for those opportunities to include those kind of things in our spaces. And I would just acknowledge that her other comment about like AI and technology and things, that was one of the things we engaged on early, is do people want to see technology in parks? And that was one of the lowest things that people want to see. They want to keep things more playable and natural and things like that. So that was some feedback we received from the community around that.
Yeah, I can imagine if you're taking your kid to the park, you don't want their Wi-Fi to work, right? That's probably why you've taken them to the park. All right, we will move then to the motion. I have a motion from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee recommends City Council, 1, adopt the 2024 Parks Master Plan as an attachment 2 in principle as a guiding document to provide direction for the continued planning, development, and operation of the City of Lethbridge's park system. 2, direct administration to return to City Council through the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee for approval of any of the objectives identified in the 2024 Parks Master Plan as follows. A, capital projects to be submitted to future capital improvement program, CIP deliberations. B, initiatives requiring operating budget changes to be submitted to future operating budget deliberations. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. So as we heard today, and thank you very much for the master plan coming forward, the Parks Department has undertaken the development of a new Parks Master Plan to determine the direction of the department for the next 15 to 20 years. Today, we would be looking at adopting this as a guiding document for the continued planning and development and operations of our park systems as we move forward. We've heard that requests would come back to council and that there is no spending asked today. We are being asked to accept this as a guiding document. It complements the 2021 REC Master Plan as well as other master plans that we have also accepted as guiding documents. And the work for this was approved under the 2022-2031 CIP. Again, no spend today. With that, if my colleagues have no further questions, I would certainly ask that everybody vote for this.
Councillor Carlson has something he would like to debate. It might be more about bees, I'm not sure.
Oh, I can get behind bees.
It's actually a question arising from the resolution, if I can, Madam Chair. Item 2A, capital projects to be submitted to future capital improvement program deliberations. Just a question through you to, I'm not sure which of our administration are there. When is our next CIP?
That seems like something Mr. Matthews is already losing sleep about, so he probably knows exactly when.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. In regards to the next CIP, it will be deliberated in 2026, and and as part of being the 2027 to 2030 CIP.
So a year from now. And I guess my only concern in that 2A is I would hate to send our staff away, prepare a bunch of projects that will be deliberated less than 12 months from now, I think is what I'm hearing Mr. Matthews say, or at least at the beginning, when we know there's not a lot of dollars to go around in our capital budget at the moment. And so I'm wondering if it makes sense, and this is sort of just a question to committee, if maybe amending that to say necessary or cost reduction capital projects be prepared and submitted to the next CIP. I guess I just wouldn't like to spend a whole lot of money saying we're looking at building a swimming pool or what was the one that had the most value or highest dollar value? It was the athletic track. I would hate to see those, a lot of time and energy go into those if we know in advance that we don't have a lot of bucks to spend. And so it's just my question to the committee is, would something like that be appropriate?
My feeling would be that's more appropriate to do as an overall thing to all departments rather than putting in here different from all the other master plans. That would just be my feeling on it. I'm not sure what the rest of the committee is thinking. Yeah, because I think we've been signaling that throughout. We're broke. Please do not bring large projects forward.
Madam Chair, as always, your wisdom is appreciated because, yes, I think perhaps a resolution regarding the capital improvement program, overarching resolution from council may be more appropriate.
Yeah. And that might be, again, that will be under the next council because we could say they're broke and they could decide they have money in November. All right, so we will go back to the motion as read. The question has been called. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your work on that. And you don't have to be back with a master plan for 15 years, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on now to submissions. The first submission is from Councillor Parker and Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, Joint Committee of the City of Lethbridge and Lethbridge School Boards. Is one of you going to be just introducing that so that we know what we're doing and prior to, I know we do have people on the list to speak towards it. So Councillor Parker, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, are one of you speaking to it?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you for that question. And since I'm not officially part of this committee, I trust that Jen will speak to it in the right way because her and I are both on the same page on this. but I'll be here just to ask questions, or I take any questions as well. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So the resolution that came from Council was to invite myself and Councillor Parker to report back regarding the value added by the Joint Committee of the City of Lethbridge and Lethbridge School Boards to the City at the February meeting of the Governance Standing Policy Committee. So that is what we're here to do. Again, we do have our colleagues from the Lethbridge School District 51 as well as Holy Spirit in the gallery that will speak to this today. Just out of the last meeting, we did spend, or out of the last joint committee meeting of school boards, we did spend a great deal talking about this. And I've made some notes that I'll present to the committee. The Joint City of Lethbridge and Lethbridge School Board Committee ensures that this partnership remains strong by creating a formalized structure for governance collaboration, and that's what we would like to look at today. While administrators manage the day-to-day operations, this committee is focused on governance, ensuring that elected officials provide strategic oversight, policy alignment, and direction that serves the best interests of the citizens. Key governance benefits that are coming out of this committee include improved coordination and policy alignment, transparent communication and accountability, strengthened joint advocacy and influence, shared leadership and decision-making, efficient use of resources and cost savings, and fostering long-term community resilience. We also enhance stakeholder engagement and public trust. So just looking at this, the committee has long served the citizens of Lethbridge by facilitating ongoing conversation, the sharing of ideas, and identifying areas of cooperation. We would like to see the committee become an official body of City Council with a renewed focus on the governments that will provide councillors and trustees with the insights needed to support, amend, and when necessary, refine policies and programs. And with that, Councillor Parker, is there anything you would like to add to that at all?
I think you encapsulated it well. Thank you, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you, Councillor Parker.
Okay, we'll now open it to the public. The first one on my list to speak is Ms. Light. Please come on up.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Christine Light. I'm Board Chair for Lethbridge School Division. Lethbridge School Division Board of Trustees strongly supports the proposal to ratify the Joint City of Lethbridge and Lethbridge School Boards Committee as a regular and formalized committee of the City of Lethbridge. And I'd like to thank Councillor Jen Schmidt-Rempel and Councillor Ryan Parker for your attendance and participation in the Joint City School Boards Committee meetings this year and exploring the benefits of continued partnership and collaboration in this context. Since the recommendation for disbandment of this committee was extended in 2024, the debate and advocacy work regarding the continuation of this committee has guided boards and council into a process of reevaluating the purpose and benefit this committee holds. And though it's been challenging, I believe this has been a beneficial process as it has regrounded the committee to governance level work. Lethbridge School Division Administration speaks highly of the collaborative work and partnership held between our division and the City of Lethbridge administration team, and I think it's imperative to highlight that good work publicly and the positive impact that work has on our city and community. The intention of this committee, is not to do the operational task. The committee has held 2 meetings so far during this school year, and they've been positive and productive. To help assure we stay on track, we've added a standing advocacy item to our committee agendas to ensure the conversations are grounded in and guided by the governance lens. As stated in my letter sent out to council members on October 21st, 2024, our division firmly believes that student success is a collective effort involving all stakeholders. This success is driven by the collaboration of educators, families, and community partners, positively impacts not only students, but their families and the broader community. The City of Lethbridge has been an essential partner in this endeavor, providing critical support and cooperation, both operationally and at the governance level. Regular interaction between elected officials from both the city and school boards allows for the sharing of visions, strategies, and insights that guide the path forward for our shared community. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel shared some key benefits of maintaining this committee, and I'll add the formalized long-term planning, collaborative data sharing, enhanced transportation solutions, shared understanding of community needs, and a united provincial advocacy, because together we can advocate more effectively for provincial funding and policies that reflect the unique needs of our growing community. Included in this agenda package was my letter to the committee dated February 10th, 2025. And some items that have been discussed this year have been the School Construction Accelerator Program with the continued funding challenges and the essential need for modernizations, as well as new elementary and high school sites needed on the west side. The cost of elections and the joint impact of these costs, transportation solutions that benefit all, communal and school-based impact to early learning with childcare subsidy programs, and the local impact and emerging needs of our refugee community as significant funding changes come from Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada rollout nationwide. The collaboration between the Lethbridge School Boards and the City of Lethbridge is a critical partnership which supports growth, economic development, and the advancement to the ability of citizens of all ages to actively and successfully participate and contribute fully within our city, ensuring a thriving community for all. And I think that's exactly why we stepped into our governance roles, so that we can ensure that that happens. This collaborative spirit our organizations have served the public with is one that is recognized and we can take pride in. And formalizing this committee affirms this spirit, I believe, and grounds the intention and optic for continuing to move forward together. And we certainly hope, the school board certainly hope, that council is aligned with this direction moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Light. Does anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Momberket, do you wish to speak as well?
Chair, Carmen Momberket, I'm the board chair with Holy Spirit School Division, and thank you for the consideration of this issue. As a school division, Holy Spirit was rather taken aback that it would even be a consideration of council to move away from this long-standing tradition of council members and trustees as the elected representatives in their own realms of the citizens of the people of Lethbridge. We were surprised it came up with a consideration, but yet we were heartened by the ongoing conversation that we have had through this committee between Councillor Jen Smith-Rempel as well as Councillor Parker, and coming to this really a renewed and a refreshed sense of the impact that this committee can actually have for the citizens of Lethbridge. The fact that we move away from the more administrative matters, which are, and it's been articulated a number of times already today, best left in the hands of our administrators, and they have a tremendous relationship already, and let them deal with the day-to-day of the impact that's between the City of Lethbridge and our shared school divisions. What was missing from the historical running of this committee was that clear focus on governance perspectives. As the councillors who are elected to represent the citizens of the City of Lethbridge, you have insight as well as overview of what the people of the city want to have happen. As elected representatives of ratepayers, both public and Catholic as well as Francophone, we have the insights coming from our people and their hopes and aspirations as to where the city and their children are going to be able to grow and prosper, and being able to come to an understanding of what life in Lethbridge is all about. Having governors come together on a regularized basis and have conversations at a high level and start to take a look at policy decisions that are going to be impacted from both the city perspective as well as from a trustee perspective is just a tremendous opportunity to do things in a way that Lethbridge isn't known for. We are a large city, but yet in so many respects we're a small community. And being able to represent the people of the city in that way, this just is a natural opportunity to have those conversations. And I would strongly encourage, my board strongly encourages, that city considers the move to make this a regularized part of what and how we do business. We look forward to your support, and we'll see how you vote. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. I don't think there's anyone else in the community who wishes to speak on this, so we will move now to questions. Before I do process, Mr. Westerson, I have two different motions, one that just says a motion will be written and one that is complete. Has the complete motion been sent to all members of the committee?
Not of yet, as of yet. Waiting for that to be
Okay.
made. I was provided right at the start of the meeting.
All right, I would suggest that we send that out, please.
I will send it now.
Okay. And when the committee gets it, if you find you need time to have a look at it, let me know and we can go into a short recess. Councillor Carlson and Councillor Middleton Hope, I don't believe have seen it yet.
I don't have it yet.
No, Mr. Westerson is simply
depending
emailing it now. It's not a long one, but you might need to read through it. So if you need a bit of a recess, let me know.
Thank you.
And we'll also put it up top. When Mr. Westerson has a moment. Because I think it'd be easier to have it up, what is being proposed, to ask questions on it, rather than ask questions and then see a motion that you may not have been expecting. Sometimes we like to make good decisions, or at least informed decisions. Okay, can we also pop it up? So this is the motion that Councillor Schmidt-Rempel has brought forward for consideration. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee recommends that City Council, 1, continue with the Joint Committee of the City of Lethbridge and the Lethbridge School Boards as a key governance and collaboration mechanism until the November 3rd, 2025 organizational meeting of City Council. And 2, direct administration to investigate the feasibility of formalizing the Joint Committee as a committee of council through the A, development of a proposed mandate and governance structure, and B, assessment of the potential costs and resource implications associated with formalization, and report back to the Governance Standing Policy Committee with findings and recommendations for council's consideration at the November 3rd, 2025 organizational meeting of City Council, which would be the first organizational meeting of the new council. Yes. So just to keep people in mind. Okay, so that is what is being proposed. We are still in questions. I just want you to have that in front of you in case it changed any of your questions. So are there questions from any members of the committee at this time? I will begin. Mr. Lowen, I don't think you had any opportunity to read this before it came up. If you are directing, if this committee is a committee of council, the first is simply the feasibility. That's all that's being asked. But if it was to move forward, if they were to move it forward in November, it would be a bylaw, et cetera. Like that is where this would be heading if it is moved to its complete conclusion.
If council wants a committee to be a committee of council, the MGA would require that there be a bylaw unless it fits in the tight temporary sort of exemption in the procedure bylaw around an ad hoc committee. So yes, we would. Those are generally fairly easy to develop as long as we know the exact parameters that council wants.
And that, I mean, that's a future discussion. Yeah. The first discussion, and this might be for, I'm not sure which member of administration, but where administration would be involved is the feasibility of formalizing the joint committee, developing the mandate, governance structure, costs, et cetera. The recommendation in this motion is to have that done by November 3rd. 1, is that a feasible timeline? Is that work that can be done, et cetera? And again, I'm not sure which member of administration this would be directed to. Don't all jump at it at once. As Ms. Hilford, is this city clerks who would be guiding this? I'm not sure.
If it is city clerks, the timeline would be challenging because we have an election, we have the swearing-in ceremony, and council orientation, all coming at that same time with the organizational meeting. I'm just wondering, maybe that is something the committee would want to do, is create their mandate and bring it to committee and council, but we're happy to do what we can as well.
We could throw that back to the joint committee. Rather than our staff doing it, ask the committee themselves to investigate the feasibility rather than our administration. We're just brainstorming.
That is what was directed with the animal welfare, I do believe. But we are happy to help. We'll help where we can. I just don't know if I can commit to that timeline.
And the election and everything, and yeah, that might be easy enough to do. And so that would be the question I would ask both Councillor Parker, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, as well as the guest. Is this something that the committee could do as part of the committee work between now and November? Oh, I think you're on.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Parker, if you feel contrary to this, but yes, I believe that is something that the committee would be happy to undertake.
I was just about to say that as well.
Okay, so friendly amendment there that it would be asking the joint committee themselves to investigate the feasibility?
Yep.
Okay, all right, any other, and then of course the follow-up is if this comes and that new council agrees, at that point it would be sent over to legal for a bylaw if that's the direction it was moving ahead. Any other questions from anyone on the committee? Okay, I don't see any questions. All right, then we will move into the debate portion. Is there any debate around this motion? Councillor Middleton Hope, you're first in queue.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate my colleagues bringing this forward. As a member of council, was unaware that this was an issue, and I'm glad that we've brought this forward. This is an absolutely critical position that we take moving forward. This not only has an impact on our students and our social programming as well as our community at large, but it also has economic implications. And I think it's imperative that we have members of council working with the school boards to further the initiatives that the school boards have in terms of growth and development, which I think is going to be critical for our community as we move forward into the next decade. So I fully support this, and I appreciate it being brought forward.
Councillor Carlson, Acting Mayor, Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be the contrarian here, I'm sure. Again, I won't be supporting this motion. I think there are already great mechanisms in place and better mechanisms that could be utilized going forward to collaborate with the school boards on advocacy and governance types issues. Just having a committee in place, especially a committee of council, doesn't seem to be the best use of our resources. Because when we look at all of the different organizations in our community, I know every single one of them would love to be a committee of council. And so where would that end? I know that the Allied Arts Council would have loved to be a committee of council. The college and university would love to have a committee of council. Alberta Health would love to have a committee of council. So I think there are better mechanisms to organize something, especially with advocacy, with so many different sectors of our community, rather than just singling out one. And so I won't be supportive of this, but as said, I will probably be the sole contrarian here.
And you seem to revel in that, so.
I do.
My concern originally with this was that, and I've seen this with too many boards and they fail, is that it was that horrible amalgamation of administration and governance and not knowing what this board actually is. I love the commitment to governance, and this gives you until November to truly be a governance board, and then the decision can be made at that point from all the three groups about whether it is working. I will make the challenge if this moves ahead when we're looking at potential costs and resource implications. I would greatly suggest it would be a better sales pitch to whatever new council you get in November if it's not only the City of Lethbridge that has money on the table to handle costs and resources, etc., but that if it is a committee of all three or all four, that everybody is contributing to whatever costs are associated with the operations of the committee, because it's certainly right now this has been governed, but it's under, like, our staff have been doing the work, etc. So I would suggest that would make it a lot more palatable to any future council if that was part of the conversation that is had. But I will be supporting this because, again, it lets it finish off under this term of council, and then the next council can decide whether or not to move ahead with the considerations. So back to you, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I certainly appreciate hearing from my colleagues, and I do appreciate the school boards for being in attendance here today to support this. When I looked at putting this resolution together, I took those ideas that we'd heard and all those thoughts that we'd heard throughout the previous meetings into consideration. So certainly requesting that the committee investigate the feasibility is something that we discussed at the committee meeting. So knowing that the committee is happy to take on that work and move forward with that is heartening to see, and that agreement, and that takes the work out of the hands of the clerk's office, because I have heard loud and clear as well that there is concern from our staff about the time and cost of this committee continuing. So to your point, Councillor Crowson, or Chair Crowson, certainly looking at assessing the potential costs and resource implications associated with formalization is something that the committee has also discussed, and how we might cost share and resource share all of this. Continuation and potential formalization of the joint committee of the two school boards, City of Lethbridge, has been a long-standing partnership, and recognizing the shared responsibility of municipal government and school boards in fostering student success, community development, and efficient service delivery. The joint committee has historically provided a forum for collaboration, discussion, and advocacy on issues of mutual interest, including infrastructure planning, public safety, resource allocation, and shared services. And this formalization could enhance the effectiveness of the committee by clearly defining its mandate, roles, and responsibilities. And I think that is an exercise that this committee should go through and then report back in November 3rd to see how we might move forward on that. And, you know, I think it's just good practice that, you know, to Councillor Carlson's point, if there are other groups that want us to be serving or attending their meetings or participating in what they're doing, they should be coming forward and asking council to participate and attend to what they're doing, because it's just a way for us to work better for this city as elected officials. So with that, if there is no further debate, I will ask for my colleagues' support.
As long as that last part is just your own opinion and not part of the motion.
The motion is that is not in the motion, but it's there.
All right. Question has been.
A million committees.
Question has been called. All in favor? And opposed? You only get one vote, Acting Mayor.
I tried.
And was that 3-1 in my mind too, Mr. Westerson? Yes, sorry. I couldn't resist that one. All right, thank you. Thank you both for coming down and speaking to this as well. Yep. All right. Now this also, this next one is on the Youth Advisory. Now, on my submissions, I have Councillor Schmidt-Rempel as well as with this, so I will just give a second for her to regain her seat. You can all talk amongst yourselves. I will ask Councillor Schmidt-Rempel to introduce this one, and then we can go from there with any members of the public, etc. Go ahead. Oh.
So the request from the Governance Standing Policy Committee meeting held on December 17th, 2024, and the resolution out of that was that we've referred this item to administration to return to the February Governance Standing Policy Committee with further information regarding the consideration of transitioning the Youth Advisory Committee to an administrative or council working group with the support of administration. We do have our administration here. And I am just looking to Mr. Gauthier and Ms. Kleisinger as to who might be, or Ms. Hilford will be speaking to this. Okay, thank you very much.
And Mr. Stein. So I'll just introduce, so we did meet, me and Mr. Stein, and we met to discuss the best way forward to obtain youth voice. And we also discussed some options. So in association with his role, Mr. Stein recommended to meet with the student associations twice a year from the post-secondary institutions and from the high schools. And I'll just maybe let Mr. Stein come up and maybe further detail that out and discuss.
So the, excuse me, the conversation we had was how to effectively engage with youth voices in the community. So we talked about meeting people where they're at. So that's at the post-secondaries, Lethbridge Polytechnic and University of Lethbridge, Redcrow College, and the high schools in the community, and how we can maybe instead of bringing them into our space, maybe more effectively engage them in their space. The challenge that we have in some of the institutions is that their governance bodies change over frequently. There's elections every year at the post-secondary institution, so there'll have to be some careful consideration of timing to make sure we can meet students in those leadership positions when they're still available. And then to find ways to bring those voices more effectively into the planning and policy-making work at the city. So there's a kind of a very tangible conduit for their contributions to be engaged in the work of community development.
Thank you for introducing that. I'm sure there will be questions, but first, is there any member of the public who is here to speak on this issue? Okay. Mr. Cool, you're just sitting back there no, just kidding. All right, we will move then to questions of council from committee. If there are any questions around this, how we see this moving forward. And not just questions, because this is one, again, we do not have a motion prepared. So this is one that I think is not just questions, but if there's conversation as well on this, any direction people would like to see this go. Go ahead, Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you. I think just first to note is I'm just wondering who's inhabited Mr. Stein's body. The hair's gone. Can't tell him because we're so used to it for so many years. Good luck, Kerry. I support this. I think it's important that we recognize the important contribution that youth make to the way in which we operate this city, the way in which we operate this province. I'm certainly in favor of opportunities to have open dialogues, and I like the idea of going to their places of activity, whether it's the university, the college, high schools. It's less imposing when we attend on their turf, and I think there is much to be gained from entering into meaningful dialogue with these groups. I know some of the problems in the past have been in terms of getting people to these meetings, getting youth to be actively involved. But I'm confident that if this remains in its current format, which is, I presume, what the motion is going to entail, that this will enhance the relationship that we have with our youth, and we will learn from them as they learn from us. So thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Thank you. I think we need some more details before we can form a motion. So we asked you in December to take this and to look at transitioning to an administrator council working group. It sounds, Mr. Stein, that you're thinking this is more something administration should do. Would that be appropriate? That it could probably be done better at that level? Do you see a role for council in it? We just need to have some sense because we have no motion on the table. So what are we looking at developing? How do we see it moving? So we have something to discuss.
So something to discuss would be perhaps treating it as just part of the functional work of administration. So perhaps it doesn't even need to be a formal committee, but it's just part of our daily work is that we engage, and we engage twice a year with those representatives. If you wanted a bit more kind of structure around it, then it could be an administrative committee that we then go have that conversation with those partners.
Well, and we can't tell you to form an administrative committee, but right now, if it's not going to be a council working group, we need to kind of just close the loop on this motion is where I'm also heading, because if it's going to be something, if the motion is going to be that this will now become an operational matter, that's one sort of motion. I'm just brainstorming here. But how to close the loop if it's going to become something that administration does as part of their regular work. So what I'm sort of asking is, does anybody have a really good motion in mind that captures the rambling you just heard me do? And Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, you're next in the queue.
I'm going to jump out here for just a second.
Oh, you're jumping out of the queue?
Yeah, I need to.
You're queued? Unjumping?
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Carlson.
Thank you. I was going to make a motion that council proceed with the administrative recommendation that the Youth Advisory Council be disbanded, and that administration is directed to actively engage with all youth organizations or all possible youth organizations in our community as described.
So that is a motion you're putting on the floor?
If possible.
Okay, let's see how quickly the city clerk scribes can write that down.
And while they're scribing, if I can have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, you may, because they need some time. Otherwise,
Excellent.
no.
I will. Yes, you're very wise. My question through you to perhaps Mr. Lowen or the city clerk's office, Ms. Hilford, perhaps. I was around part of council that created the YAC, the Youth Advisory Council. And it functioned well for that term. And then it sort of lost steam. And I'm wondering if committees of council should be specific to the term in which they're created. And if there's a mechanism to embed in the creation of these committees that they are only for that term of council. I wouldn't dream to say that whatever committees this council deems important, next council would, as I would hate to be on a council that was told what committees previous council deemed important. So I'm wondering if that should be something, or could be something, embedded in our processes, that every term of council gets to either create or continue with the committees that they deem necessary and appropriate. Basically a sunset clause.
I know it's something I've mentioned to Ms. Hilford before about that. I'm not sure if Mr. Lowen or Ms. Hilford, have you seen that in another community? Is that something that can be done? Or does it just create, does it create so much work for an incoming council that it's not a smart idea? Or is it something they just want to have control over, so you might as well give it to them? What have you seen in other communities?
I'll comment and then I'll let Mr. Lowen comment. That would be something that council would add to the terms of reference or the bylaw, that it would be reviewed once per term or before the end of a term, or that, for an ad hoc, that it would just be created to do a specific task or task force or something. So it would be included into the terms of reference of either reviewing annually or a term of council, whatever council desires. Mr. Lowen?
And expand a little bit on that. There's a few different kinds of sunset clauses you could have. Ms. Hilford identified a number of them. You could have it automatically expire. You could have it that it must need to be reviewed. The bigger concern I would have, and I would defer to the clerk's office to look at this, is when would an incoming council have the time and the wherewithal to approach that with thoughtfulness and the information they require. It's quite when you have a lot of returning councillors, it might not be a big of an issue, but if you had a lot of new councillors, it might be a lot. So I think that's the more challenging answer to the question. Quite, as a matter of law, very simple to put it into the bylaw of a council committee.
Okay. Mr. Western and I were just kind of talking. I'm thinking, don't we already have something like that in one of our past documents? Can you be my memory here?
Just as coming from the December 17th Governance SBC, on January 21st, Council actually already took this step and provided that direction. It was in the consent agenda motion.
That's why it sounded familiar to all of us. Bad memories. All right. Anything else, Councillor Carlson?
No, I think my resolution, I'm just reading it now. I think it makes sense to me. I'll read it again. Thank you.
Okay. Next in the queue, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. You jumped out of the queue. Now you're back in. Okay, go ahead.
This just insofar as our staff engagement, Mr. Stein, if I may ask, was there any discussion with current members of the Youth Advisory Committee? Were they consulted at all on this? And what's being proposed?
The Youth Advisory Committee were engaged when we did our initial engagement with all the committees in our BCC review. Mr. Stein and I just had conversations lately with regards to this.
Okay, but they weren't engaged after that, like with what's going on here today?
Nope.
They weren't engaged with? Okay. Then, and my next question then with this motion to Councillor Carlson, where do you see in this motion, or do you see in this motion, how this can support other youth outcomes for the city, including actioning the community well-being and safety strategy recommendations related to both children and youth? Because we may have an opportunity here to widen and speak to our prevention programs if we're looking at youth and taking all of those policies in as well. Is that something that you see this motion doing?
I'm not quite clear, but I think that could be a function of community and social development if you're talking about prevention programs.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just
again, what concerns me and is that council seems to get out of its lane a lot, and so we've kind of removed some of those functions from council, and so there are other committees and like our community and well-being folks that connect with all of those groups and report back to council. They connect with the senior population. They connect with the youth population. They connect with our urban indigenous population. And through that, they do all the connections and provide recommendations to council. So that's sort of how I see this.
okay. And when you say biannual communications with the student government bodies at local high schools and post-secondary schools, we're talking about meeting with them twice a year?
That's what it looks like. And in that motion, I don't think it should be limited. Sorry, Mr. Stein, to student government bodies. There are other organizations. Some of the folks that sit on the student government bodies, they're a different demographic than perhaps those that participate in Boys and Girls Club, Youth One, those types of organizations. And so I wouldn't want to see it limited to that. I agree that we do need some input from our post-secondaries and perhaps our high schools, but there are other ways that I think we can engage with youth in our community that perhaps don't have a voice at their government level, if that makes sense.
Are you finished?
It's like it's like if you only talk to city council, you're not going to actually talk to most. We're a pretty old white crowd. You're not going to really be talking to our and I'm pointing at me. You're not going to get a real cross section of our community if you just talk to the government of your community.
Okay. All right, Councillor Middleton, Hope, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just would be a question to Mr. Stein or Ms. Hilford. I too had one concern in regards to the frequency with which the engagement occurs. My thought was semi-annually instead of having all that verbiage in there that makes it perhaps less clear. Semi-annually would allow you and or the group to engage as you see fit and as are required. Would that be preferable to biannual and holding you to twice a year? Some years you may decide that it's only once, sometimes you may decide it's 3 or 4 times because you're involved in an important issue. So do you have a thought on that?
I think we would appreciate the flexibility. Also knowing that our needs are maybe not the needs that or the realities that work with our partner. So
Right.
some degree of flexibility would mean that we can treat it like a true partnership and meet in the middle somewhere.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's it. That's all I have.
Okay, so we go back to the motion. In many ways, I feel that the motion we have is, hey, you guys do public engagement, keep doing public engagement, but include youth. Like it seems like, I mean, this is something you guys are already doing, and it's a very much a feel-good motion at this point is, you know, please include the youth. So I don't think we're asking you to do anything you're not already doing, except focus on the student government. Would that be, you know, like, so I don't think there's anything ground shaking here. Nobody's telling me we're shaking the ground? Okay. And does it, from our perspective, does it close off any motions? Does it close the loops we have to with what we are doing? Now, because the other thing that was kind of out there still was that youth portal. The youth portal would still be going ahead, am I correct, based on what we've done previous?
That motion was carried by council.
Okay. So the youth portal is there, and then this would be ensuring that there is, when we're working on things, that the youth are involved. Okay. All right. And we have this now moved by Acting Mayor Carlson. Acting Mayor Carlson, are you fine with this to bring forward as now massaged and rewritten?
Excellent. I appreciate the suggestions from my colleagues, and I'd ask for your support.
All right. The motion has been made. Any debate? Not. Question's been called. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you all for that. And then we move on to our advocacy, which is in closed, government relations and advocacy update. We do need to go in closed on this, Mr. Gauthier? Okay, so I need a motion, be it resolved that we do now enter a closed meeting at 3:06 p.m. to discuss confidential matters with respect to item 7.1 as per sections 21, harmful to intergovernmental relations, and 24, advice from officials of the Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act. So moved by Councillor Middleton Hope. All in favor? And we are moving into closed session. Thank you all. For those who are not going to be part of the close, run away while you have the chance. I think I can.
Is everybody in favor?
I've just made a motion. Are we all in favor of going out of in camera? We're out. And we have a revised motion now for government relations, correct?
Yeah, it'll be on the screen.
Okay, it's what I have and then just an addition. Perfect. If I can read that motion fast enough, maybe we can get you guys out of here by 4.
Fast.
And then I got to go grocery shopping because, again, do not shop tomorrow unless you have to. Oh. We're boycotting tomorrow.
Boycotting what?
Actually, the Americans are boycotting everything. The Americans are just not going shopping tomorrow. And in Canada, we're boycotting all American stores and shopping only local if you have to shop tomorrow. Further be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council direct administration to update the confidential airport advocacy plan? Is that, or was it to do what was in, is that more than you were going to say?
That's what I was going to say.
Does that work for you guys? It's now probably public, so is it good for you? Mr. Goldstein?
Yes, that'll work.
Did they turn your mic on and off again on you? Okay, can somebody turn it back on for him, please? Thank you.
So I did indicate to Mr. Westerson that, yes, that will work.
Okay. All right. Are we back in open, Mr. Westerson? Okay. So I have a motion from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council, 1, receive the confidential government relations and advocacy update as information, 2, direct that the closed meeting documents, discussions, and presentations with respect to the government relations and advocacy update remain confidential pursuant to Section 21, harmful to intergovernmental relations, and 24, advice from officials of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Further be it resolved that Governance Standing Policy Committee recommends that Council direct administration to update the confidential airport advocacy plan as discussed in the closed session. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
I will ask for my colleagues to please support this.
Questions?
Debate? Oh, do
Yes,
you have your
Councillor
hand up?
Carlson, do you have debate on this?
I do not, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, we discussed some other issues regarding advocacy in camera. Nothing confidential, I think, about some of our discussions regarding FCM and attendance and organization. I'm wondering...
You can do that as a motion arising after this one if you would like.
I would like.
Okay. All right. See, I read your mind even over the distance. All right. Question has been called on this one. All in favor? All right. I have a feeling Councillor Carlson may have a motion arising out of the closed meeting.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't know it needs to be a motion. I know that we sort of provided some direction to our staff, but I think we need
We
to do
did
it in
not
public.
provide any direction in closed. Are you kidding?
No, but in chatting we have, but we haven't done it formally. And so I'm wondering if we can direct administration to prepare, to ascertain which members of council will be attending FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, this May and June, and to build an advocacy plan for those in attendance.
Doable from administration's perspective?
Yes, Madam Chair, absolutely.
Okay. Any questions or concerns from my colleagues for that motion? They're just typing it up, but I think in principle we probably can vote on that as they're typing it. I don't think they're going to add anything non-discussed already. All right.
And provide donuts for Jeff.
And provide donuts for Jeff. Okay. Didn't say Jeff Carlson, just any Jeff on your floor you can give donuts to. All right. Question's been called, I'm assuming? All in favor? And recommend council direct, yes. Make sure that it's in there because we can't direct. But since this won't go to council meeting for a while, if you kind of do it in a, no, just kidding. All right. We're adjourned.
Awesome. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you all. Thank you to administration for all your help on that. That was a wide-ranging discussion today.